All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Carolinas Weather Group. Sorry for the slight delay, a little technical difficulties getting my cell phone, so you can blame it on me tonight. But welcome to our show. We had hoped, as we talked about last week, to finish up our hurricane series with some emergency managers. We just couldn't get it pulled off. I know Shay was working really hard with his people down in South Carolina, and I had a few contacts, and we could just never get everything coordinated. So hopefully, maybe in the next couple of months or something, we can get that coordinated, because I really want to have that show and kind of talk about the aspects of emergency management, what they do to prepare for hurricane season. So with that, we're going to do an abbreviated show tonight. We're going to just kind of talk a little bit about what's going on in our areas, and maybe even talking about what's going on out in the Midwest right now. And then we're going to close up shop a little bit early, because we have a meeting that we're going to do after the show. So we may see some new and improved things coming to the Carolinas Weather Group here in the next few weeks. So excited to have that too. I do know that Kit's on vacation, so he's not here tonight, but I'm going to pass it off to our other resident Charlotte native, Mr. James Briarton. James, how is things going on in Charlotte? I know earlier you guys had some storm skirt over to the north of you. What's it like now?
You know, I missed them here in Pineville. I haven't gotten any rain action today, and actually would have liked some. It's quite hot here. We, according to the official observation, did reach into the lower 90s again today, and that meant that we reached into the 80s in my apartment. So if I'm sweating, I apologize yet again. But that's right. We are watching. What, Peter? You'll get a bit. Come on, man. You gotta. It happens. And yeah, we're watching for the possibility for a few more storms. I think I just saw one on radar scope a few moments ago. North Mecklenburg, southern Iredale, coming into that I-77 corridor and beginning to see a little lightning with it. But I could use a little something to give me some relief down here. But so far, I got nothing. How's it been up in your neck of the woods today, Scotty? Did you get any of that rain that moved through? Did it come through the mountains?
No. It kind of got here and then broke up. I think Ricky got some over on his side of the mountain. We'll talk about that in just a second. But here it was like 92, 93 degrees, really hot. We had some cumulus, but nothing besides that, no action. So actually today I've been talking, myself and another colleague of mine, we've been talking lightning safety and thunderstorm safety with a bunch of kindergarten through 8th graders at a safety camp today. So it's been an active day with that, but weather-wise, it's been pretty quiet besides it being hot. So speaking of the active weather, let's throw it up to the Bristol, Tennessee area, where our friend Ricky Matthews is tonight. Ricky?
Hey, Scotty, what's happening? Yeah, we had a few severe thunderstorm warnings issued earlier today. We had a storm. Our coverage area goes from roughly southeast Kentucky all the way over to portions of, we'll say Smith-Wythe County. That's basically our cutoff. We do have a few viewers in the Boone area, Ash, Watauga, Avery counties. But we had a few severe thunderstorms associated with the cluster of storms moved out of southeast Kentucky around, say, 12:30 or so, and then moved through Wise, moved through portions of Russell County, Scott County, clipped a portion of Washington County, Virginia, and also impacted the Abingdon area with a little bit of small hail as well. But nothing too bad, nothing too severe today. We had some worse storms last Thursday, really. But a little bit of excitement, and now watching the cluster of storms up near Chicago get its act together and see where it's going to track as we go through the overnight and evening hours, if it's going to move into our region, or if it'll stay just slightly north. I don't really know. I'm watching some of the high-res models, kind of trying to get their thoughts on it here, but it looks to be developing a little further south than maybe what I was thinking earlier. So.
Well, somebody just heard a tornado siren there. Somebody.
That was an NWS chat up that's talking about, quote, the storm in central Lee County, Illinois, frequently cycled, so the RFD is pushing out preventing a tornado so far.
There you go. When I hear that, it always just puts not a smile on my face, but it always gets my attention. How about that? So,
that's the universal. It's happening. So.
Yeah. And speaking of that, our man in Plaid, who I guess you've had some more severe weather up there the past couple of days.
Yeah, big surprise.
I've seen our friends at the Mount Holly office went out on a storm survey today, so I do believe out of all of us, you have stole all the storm action in the past month.
Well, I can give some away if you like. I mean, I'm getting pretty tired of it. But, yeah, we had another round of severe weather yesterday. I missed all the action because it went all to my south, but I did get a lot of thunder out of it. But the southern portion of New Jersey got pretty banged up, I should say. Microburst came by yesterday, late afternoon, and horrible reports out there of windows blowing out of places, trees down everywhere. It was just a mess. So the weather was good today, though, nice and sunny, and then we're watching maybe some more severe weather tomorrow. So it's just never ending around here. I can't get a break.
Like I was telling you earlier, I was like, you can pass some of that action down here. It's been kind of boring in our part of it.
Take it. I mean, I haven't had Chick-fil-A, that's why.
That's it. That's
the problem.
Well, next toss, I'm going to toss it to the man that I envy because he's at the beach and it's like 90-some degrees and it's the best place to be right now. So, Mr. Shea Gibson, how is things in Charleston this evening?
We're doing pretty good. The sea breeze is keeping us a little bit on the cooler side today. We finally got the southerlies back, but the last couple of weeks has been, we've just one heat wave after another. We're getting ready to get into our next heat wave, probably get into some triple digits, maybe tomorrow, if not then Friday. Then we have another backdoor front coming down. But yeah, last week it got pretty hot here, pretty hot and humid. The sea breeze really wasn't much help, especially when the wind switched up to the west later in the week. And then we had a really interesting backdoor front drop down through the southeast region, and about a 20-degree, well, I wouldn't say 20, about 15-degree difference in colder air mass triggered some pretty intense thunderstorms here. So it was our first real bout of intense thunderstorming, and I was able to get out on the beach Friday afternoon anticipating the arrival of those, and just kind of sat there and waited and got some really mean pictures of some shelf clouds, and I think we got 51-mile-an-hour northwest wind. I was standing there and the temperature probably dropped 25 degrees with that outflow, and got some surface vortices right on the water. A couple of spouts tried to form, and it was pretty intense. And it was funny because people, I guess they're just oblivious, and everyone's looking back at the skyline to the west, and all of a sudden here comes the wind, and then everybody freaks out. You see the shelf cloud coming, and then you hear the thunder, and so pretty interesting. Behind that backdoor front this past weekend, we got some serious northeast winds. We got the northeast wedge set up for North Carolina, Georgia, and South Carolina. Specifically for Charleston, we got into the mid-30s to upper 30s for mile-an-hour winds, and temperature was very nice. It was a very pleasant weekend. It was really windy. We got some time out on the water kiteboarding, got some max air time, and it was really pleasant to have that in the middle of all this heat. Hopefully we get a little bit of a cool snap this weekend, maybe drop down to 90 instead of 100. So back to you.
Who would think that 90s would be a cool snap?
Yeah.
Well, what we really also want to know is he wasn't with us last week, so how was your week off? Did you enjoy your kiteboarding with your friends? And we're glad you had a week off, but kind of tell us about that. Everything go good?
Yeah, everything went well. A friend came up from Tampa Bay, and then we had the Wind Sports for Wounded Warriors over the weekend. So we got some of these guys up on the kites, and one of them got up and rode, and it was great. It's good wind. It was too windy Saturday, but Sunday it came down in the afternoon enough for them to get the smaller kites out, and then got them up and riding. And then the sea breezes kicked in Monday and Tuesday, and so we've had a lot of wind here on the coast lately, a lot of cooler wind, especially with the northeast wedge that happened. Our sea surface temperatures were 86, and they dropped to 81.1 in over a 2-day event. So that's pretty significant for a 5.9 degree temperature change within 2 days just from some cool water upwelling from the north. So it's nice to have that in the summer. I hope we continue to have them every couple of weeks or so, because it sure is a break.
That is a pretty big drop. Man, I can't imagine that. Get going one day. I guess, I mean, it still feels warm, but the 5-6 degree drop is pretty noticeable. So.
Well, yeah, when the water temperature gets about 86 and climbs upward to 88 during these heat waves, man, there's not much relief out there. The sea breezes don't really help. When the beaches are 95 to 100 degrees, there was one year, I believe it was the La Nina year, so it's really interesting to see the transition to neutral right now. And what the pattern's going to be. We have massive Bermuda Azores high out in the Atlantic right now, And I'm really interested to see how that works out. But I remember the sea surface temperatures just being ridiculously hot, 88, 89 degrees, and the heat index on the beach one day was 120. So 125 inland. I mean, there's really not much relief from the sea breeze, and it was 20-knot winds. So
Yeah, that's definitely not much at all. So, well, guys, I guess the big topic this week or the past couple of days is the ongoing events of what's taking place right now in the Midwest. So, um, I guess out of all of us, Ricky, you probably will be flirting with it the most. So, what are you guys seeing, and what are you guys doing to prepare for the extreme severe weather that we've all heard about the past couple of days?
You're not even getting used to. Oh, look, the ice cream truck's outside. You're not going to use the word derecho? I mean,
no, I was going to refrain from that.
Hey guys, I think we have our first tornado warning of the day. Ricky, you have chat up. You want to take that one?
yeah, I actually was just watching some Chaser streams, actually. John Humphreys is streaming. He's in Whiteside County, Illinois, and there's just been a tornado warning issued for what's called Lee County in Illinois. I'm not sure how close that is to where he is at.
There
But
it is. It's up on the screen.
certainly the tornado warning is currently in a kind of an isolated area at the moment. Weather Service is expecting it to remain over some rural areas, but there it is. That little cell right there is, there you go. So it brings up a nice little couplet with that storm. I don't kind of moving, cycling a bit, it seems, as it starts to move off to the south and east. So our first tornado warning of the night associated with this storm system getting going up in the Chicago area. It's interesting to watch some of these chaser streams because there's decent visibility on some of these storms. But when you look at the radar and where these circulations are at, it looks like a rain-wrapped mess. And that is a pretty small tornado warning, too. Props to the National Weather Service Chicago for drawing small tornado warning boxes and not these gigantic polygons that I see from some offices all the time. But a little bit of a contaminated view, perhaps kind of stuck in between two radars, stuck between the Davenport radar and also the Juliet, Illinois radar there near the Weather Service in Chicago. But right near West Brooklyn, kind of north and west of there, moving towards the Compton area, and then eventually down south and east towards, well, if it continues on this path over the next 30 to 45 minutes, heading towards Earlville, as we get closer probably to around, say around, let's see, it's 8:15 now, so that's 7:15 Central, so let's say around 7:45 to 8 o'clock Central Time. But right through there, I don't know if you can zoom in a little bit for me, James.
Have you ever had somebody else operate your radar for you before?
Not yet. There we go. So right north of and east of Sublet is where that little couplet is there. If you're ever looking for a tornado on radar, you're going to be looking for an area of green and red velocities coming together, indicating that there's winds from two different directions coming together there. So you see a little bright greenish, almost whitish color north and east of Sublet. And then also kind of the red velocities just to the north and east of that. That's where your potential couplet would be in terms of a potential tornado. Now, one of the advantages of radar nowadays is that we have what's called dual polarization radar, and so we're able to see if there's any debris, and I'm looking at that on one of my other products here on GR2. Not seeing anything like that would indicate potential for debris at this time, but certainly a strengthening couplet. It's gotten stronger on the last scan that's come in, kind of heading right towards West Brooklyn, and so that's going to be the primary area under the gun for this storm, say in about 10 to 15 minutes. But overall, in the grand scheme of things, we expect this storms that are forming now to kind of cluster into a large thunderstorm complex known as an MCS and dive off to the south and east. So you can already see it forming pretty well. They're going to be kind of clusters of supercells for the first little bit here, but once they get rocking and rolling off to the south and east, which I would say it probably will occur in the next hour or two, it's likely going to form in a pretty strong MCS. I don't know if do you have mesoanalysis up at all?
I was just looking through what other tabs I can get you. Do you want to start with the kind of the coverage area today, and then we can walk through that?
Yeah, try
Or I
that.
can pull up a mesoscale discussion.
Sure, because I mean a lot of the parameters on mesoanalysis were pretty impressive, and really south and west of Chicago. And when we're looking for this severe weather threat tonight, and we're thinking about where it's going to head over time, you're going to be wanting to look for a gradient in terms of CAPE, and also look at the flow aloft to try and figure out where this MCS or derecho may move as it goes over, say, the next several hours, eventually moving through the Ohio Valley probably after midnight, maybe close to midnight, and then heading into West Virginia, and maybe heading up towards David's area up in near the Charlottesville region as we head towards, say, 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning. But there's the moderate risk, and the one tornado watch is out at this time. The moderate risk is not for tornadoes, it's for wind at this time. So everyone always seems to associate the moderate risk with tornadoes, and there's a very good potential for tornadoes near the Chicago area tonight, especially near Joliet, Ottawa, Sterling, Rockford, Pontiac, any of those areas west of Chicago. And one of them could be strong. The primary threat, once this thing all gets organized and moving off to the south and east, is going to be those strong, damaging winds in a widespread area, which is why there's a moderate risk zone out tonight by the Storm Prediction Center. And so the graphic that James has pulled up right now is something for the National Weather Service of Chicago. They're talking about kind of the risk levels. Notice how wind is much higher than the tornado risk by about 1 to about 1.3 steps. Still pretty significant tornado risk and also a hail threat. But it's interesting to see how they've kind of defined that. Notice 80-mile-per-hour winds, Scotty. As we've seen here in western North Carolina, you get some 60, 70, 80-mile-per-hour winds, and you can get the potential for damage equitable to an EF0 tornado.
Yeah, those damage and straight line winds can do a lot of damage, and you think it's summertime now. You have a lot of people who maybe in campgrounds and places like that who may be in tents or RVs, stuff like that. And so that wind, 65, 70 miles per hour, 80 miles per hour, can do a lot of damage for those folks who are outside. And even, I'm not sure the conditions up there in the Chicago area, but where we are, we've had a kind of a drought going on, so you have the weakened soil and stuff like that. So that damage and wind, like you said, Ricky, can do just as much damage as a weak tornado. So I'd be interested to see as this kind of cycles through to see how many damage and wind reports we get out of that area over the next several hours.
Ricky, would you expect to see this tornado warning extended out a little bit? Because the latest update from the National Weather Service is that a train spotter on the ground just confirmed seeing a tornado.
Yeah, there was actually a video stream. I haven't been able to find it yet, but some weather spotters were confirming tornadoes. So, I mean, it would make sense to me that since it's a confirmed tornado now, they're probably going to make this polygon a little bit bigger, extend it off to the south and east, probably including Compton. What was interesting when I try to cover different areas like Paw Paw, Pearlville.
So I'm letting you do it. I didn't want to say anything wrong.
Well, Mendota. We have a Mendota in my area, but maybe we're saying this one right. But the couplet will likely go probably more towards the Compton, Paw Paw area than areas to the south. So that would be the area I'm most interested in. I'm watching a stream from John Humphreys right now. Great wall cloud on it. No real funnel that I see, and this may be a different storm. He's in Whiteside County, Illinois, so I need to turn my counties on here on GR and see. So he's actually on the storm that's further west of where this one is. But it has a nice little...
Minneapolis?
Yeah, kind of more towards the Davenport area. Near Morrison and Sterling. There's a storm there that also seems to have some potential rotation with it. Unless his icon is just kind of being delayed from where he's located. The folks over severe storms have some great streams up that I'm flipping back and forth through. Usually you can always find which one has the best stuff by just looking at how many numbers of people are watching it. Like the guy who has 13 watching, no offense, but you probably don't have that great of a video stream right now. But the one with 590, that sounds like a good one to click on. Let's try that one. And this guy is currently driving somewhere. There's some chasers who have better name recognition, like Kelly, so hers is usually seen on the Weather Channel a lot of times. Oh yeah, nice little shelf cloud there.
Here's a look at the storm just south of Minneapolis, which really drives home your point, Ricky, that this is a large area we're talking about. It's not just the Chicago metro. Yeah,
I mean, it is. The storms in Minneapolis kind of associated with a different system, but the folks in Chicago were expecting 2 lines of storms tonight. The first one being this kind of first cluster here, and wow, that is a pretty nice couplet. Now, go back to the storm that we were talking about earlier there with the tornado warning. That couplet has very significantly intensified. Just the last couple of radar scans, it's almost outside the tornado warning this time.
Yeah, I'm waiting for that tornado warning to expand. I wonder if I'm following just the tornado feed. If I were to follow, I suppose, the Chicago office, if there's any more discussion in chat. Are you seeing anything?
Not at this time.
Okay. There's a town called Sandwich. Not to make light of a serious situation, but there is a town called Sandwich on the screen.
The Weather Service did say that they issued a small polygon because of the cycling the storm is undergoing, and so they were figuring that it may interact with another system, and it could cut off the circulation. But it seems like the storm has managed to get itself going enough to create what is a weather spotter confirmed tornado, just very near to West Brooklyn at this hour.
And so, if I can step in for just a second, what we're talking about, James and Ricky, I'm on it right now, and is the NWS chat. It's a private chat room that access to storm chasers, emergency managers, media, anyone with the weather service, and it's kind of a private chat room that the National Weather Service can display or relay information to us in the media or to emergency managers, and that way it's kind of an open forum that we can ask questions. It's a really good tool I love to use. I wish my forecast office was a little bit more vocal in their chat, and I think some of you guys would probably agree in your areas, but places like the Midwest, Chicago, St. Louis, Wichita, Oklahoma City, it's more of an open, very interactive in the chat rooms. And James, you and Ricky both on TV. How much do you, or James at the time you was on TV, how much would you rely on what Weather Chat was saying? And Ricky, how much do you guys there at WCYB use the chat option?
Well, I used it quite a bit, especially during severe weather. And I also encouraged our folks in the newsroom to kind of monitor it as well, because there is certain data we can get from the weather computer, but having that human eye, that human interaction, and even that community aspect where you're talking to other meteorologists, you're talking to the National Weather Service, storm spotters, emergency managers, the people who are kind of the front line on this to gather the information and to disseminate the information was huge. And then also it's a really good news gathering tool where people in the newsroom could get a sense of where they might need to send reporters or what areas of town might be most heavily affected. And of course, the thing we always caution, and the thing I'm sure the National Weather Service would say if they're here right now, is it is a closed group of people because the information they're dealing with is not always verified and confirmed. So you kind of have to have your own sense of responsibility on what you disseminate and what you don't, because there's certainly some information in here they don't want to get out yet because it's still very preliminary. Ricky?
Yeah, and one of the best things about it is the ability for the forecast to kind of communicate back and forth with us. So we had a situation yesterday where the Weather Service folks in Morristown were talking to us about what they were seeing with the storm, and we were able to feed a few thoughts off them as well, and kind of work together to just disseminate one common message, which is usually a great thing when it comes to severe weather and trying to talk a little bit about what's going on in terms of the storms. So.
How are the periscopes doing for the National Weather Service offices in your area, Ricky? Do you find them using it fairly often? We had Charleston last Friday during the storms. They came on, I think, 8 or 9 times for updates just in the Charleston WFO alone, and they sort of walked everyone through about every 20 minutes. They were doing another update until the storms were out of their forecast zone to the south.
I have yet to see anything from any of our local offices. It's possible I could have just missed something, but I haven't seen anything come out in terms of Periscope. I think Weather Service in Morristown is the Southern Region Headquarters office, and the Charleston office maybe is this Eastern Region Headquarters in terms of offices. They may be in a different mandate currently in terms of what they're doing.
Yeah, I believe there's Southeast Region. It's a good question. I'll have to get back to you on that one. But let's see, Scott, I think it's Scott Stevens, he was doing the periscopes for Charleston. He typically does. And, yeah, I mean, it seems to be doing pretty well as far as Twitter accounts are concerned. Their Facebook account, they just sort of pop a few things in here and there, and they come on the radio, and they do all the warnings and everything that they normally do. But our local Mets and all of us combined as a team really helped to get that word out too. But I just thought it was really impressive that they're doing live video feed from their office, doing these updates, and they're not just 5-second updates. I mean, they're pretty extensive 2 to 3 and even 5-minute updates explaining everything going on and what to look forward to. So getting the word out.
Yeah, it certainly, is another avenue for the Weather Service offices to kind of go down, and it puts a little bit more demand, in my opinion, on the offices. They got to have someone there who's able to communicate and able to talk about this stuff, and be able to disseminate it to almost a mass media kind of format, that before they didn't really need. It used to be the whole Weather Service thing was just relying on forecasters who were able to forecast and forecast good. And now you almost have to have some social science skills and communication skills. I talked to one of the WCMs at the offices around here, and he was saying how, in the future they're going to need more almost former broadcast people and people who like doing community outreach and stuff like that, because they need more extroverted people who are interact with the public back and forth.
And I think we might have a slight teachable moment here for folks who look at these polygons and try to figure out where these storms are going to be going as I jump into this conversation and kind of take us back into that extended Chicago metro, because you'll notice that they've extended the tornado warning, but it's not necessarily a continuation of the exact polygon they had before, because it seems to have curved a little bit. So, there are times when you're on air and you're telling people, okay, if you are anywhere near this area, you need to be alert. And a lot of times people in here take it seriously, but the people in the fringes don't. So there's a certain margin of error, and you can certainly see how the people on the outer edge here now are finding themselves a little bit more under the gun as it makes its way there towards Compton. We have David Reese hopping on the line this evening. And David, just a few moments ago we were talking about the extended forecast for this system. You guys taking any extra precautions in your neck of the woods for later tonight?
Later tonight, I'm probably going to just keep a watchful eye on it from home. Go home at 11:45, my normal time. After that, I'll text the chief, since he works in the mornings, and give the call whether he should come in a little bit earlier or not, and then I'll try to get a few hours sleep, and then try to wake up with my wife when she gets up at 5:30, 6 o'clock, whenever she wakes up, and see what the radar is doing. Because I was just looking over a few things, and the her is looking entertaining for us around 6, 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. I don't think this one's going to have too much oomph when it arrives here in central Virginia and near the Charlottesville area. I think it'll be gusty wind, maybe 40, 50 mile per hour winds. But I'm actually a little more concerned about what happens after this passes tomorrow morning, if we see a little bit of sunshine. And if we see sunshine tomorrow, then we could definitely start talking about some severe storms around the Virginia area. So it'll be something to watch. I'm watching these storms now, like you were just talking about, James. In northern Illinois, that one had pretty decent rotation on it there for a little bit. Yeah, it's going to be a long night for our friends in northern Illinois and eventually into Indiana and beyond.
And David, that weather model you talked about, the HER, is one that puts out forecasts pretty frequently, pretty high resolution, and people are beginning to lean on it more and more. But there's a little bit of a discussion about sometimes it being a little too hyperactive. But I believe, and I'm not sure if you saw this as well, that they might be tweaking the formula here in a little bit to get hopefully a better and more accurate forecast.
Yeah, I've seen that. I've heard that from other Mets who have worked on the model that has vective initiation kind of error in it, in that it likes to overconvect things way too much. And one instance of that, if somebody can pull it up for me here since I'm on my phone, if you start looking at it, and
here comes the latest model now,
and you look at it towards hour 12, 13, 14, and you start seeing the stuff happen back in West Virginia, it's just like, all right, is that really going to happen? Because you just had a nice MCS roll through there. It's still 9 o'clock in the morning. Are you really going to get that much convective activity in the wake of a fairly robust MCS? I would lean no, but I'm looking at others that might say on the southern side of where the MCS goes that you could certainly see it. Like I'm looking at the RPM model here, which is done by WSI. I know Ricky has access to it, and a few others do as well. It's through our weather vendor, and it's bubbling it up south, some of that secondary energy. So it'll be interesting to see how fast storms redevelop back behind it, if we see any sunshine. But I've learned here in Central Virginia, the HRRR is not exactly the best model to use. Of course, none of the models are the best to use, but it has some errors in it in that it likes to over-convect, especially on summertime afternoons. So I just kind of use a combination between the HRRR, the 4-kilometer NAM, and the RPM to kind of get a general sense of how many thunderstorms are going to be out there. So that's generally what I do, at least once we start closing in within about 24, 36 hours.
Yeah, I think if you ever try to use one of the models for storm positioning, a lot of times in the summertime, you're going to have a bad day. I mean, it's just one of those things where it's very hard to trust one of the models in terms of where they're going to initialize. I've seen that HRRR have good, history and progress and verification after a storm like this forms, and so I'm kind of monitoring this MCS and where the HRRR takes it. It wouldn't shock me if it does a good job tonight, but I'll tell you, the RPM sucked in my area. The run variations were pretty bad, and it initializes off the NAM. The WSI RPM model we're talking about initializes off the NAM, and so you have issues sometimes with the NAM being horrible. I looked at the NAM 4 and it was shooting out, didn't even have any of the storms over our area when it initialized, and so the initialization was bad. You put crap into a model, you're probably going to get crap out of it too. So
I was always pleasantly surprised how well Barron's model worked here in the Charlotte area. The name is escaping me at the moment. Oh, the BAM model.
And to a degree, because I have access watching our competition, and they have a Barron product, so it's kind of nice to have two different models in our area. But even theirs on Monday was showing cloud cover all day long, and scattered showers popping up, and it was mostly sunny, about 83 degrees here, so that didn't work out.
One thing to add to the HRRR 3, it seems to do pretty well along the coastline, especially in the sea breeze convergences, and even the last couple of tropical systems that came through did pretty well. One thing I wanted to ask you, David, we tend to get, especially along these undulating fronts in the summertime in the heat, we get the southwest jetting overnight, so we have a nocturnal jet along an inversion. So how far inland would that penetrate? Would that get all the way to you in Virginia? Because along the coastline, you can get these nocturnal storms fire off at nighttime and turns right around the next morning when the heating begins and you get the sea breeze front moves ashore and just triggers a whole nother round of storms. So how far inland would that jetting go into Virginia?
I don't think it gets too far. It certainly doesn't get up into my area here in the heart of Virginia. But I wouldn't be surprised to see it get all the way to maybe up, say, Richmond, and also maybe up to D.C. because, again, they have the Chesapeake Bay right there. And, of course, I've noticed just in my short time here in the past year and a half that areas near the bay have a completely different wind flow. They have a completely different environment compared to the rest of us because that bay has such a localized effect that you get quick spin-ups in some of the stronger storms that otherwise wouldn't be spinning. So it's definitely been something to watch, but as far as like how far inland the sea breeze gets, it normally doesn't get too far inland, at least here into Virginia, because we don't have a massive coastline like you guys down in the Carolinas do. So it's a lot more discombobulated. It's not as almost uniform as what you guys have in the Carolinas. So I'd say maybe Richmond is kind of that cutoff point. Maybe Interstate 95 corridor is maybe that cutoff point from D.C. down to Richmond and Emporia, but west of there, it's probably not going to penetrate too much further.
Right. I just think of some of that.
About where I used to see it. I mean, kind of living on the coast there, the storms would pop off roughly around Emporia, kind of James City, Charles City region. Sometimes they would impact areas along the Middle Peninsula as well. Most of the time, then they kind of transverse themselves to the east and eventually roll through Newport News, Norfolk, Hampton, Pocosin, Portsmouth, a couple hours later. But it was always a slow-moving little area, and you were always able to watch the lightning to the west as they kind of just hung out there, and these multi-cell storms kind of built up and then fell apart with no structure to them, really.
And I just quickly want to jump in as we are continuing to keep an eye on tonight's big headline, the severe weather maker, which is currently
That doesn't look like us.
Boy,
No.
in
This is
parts
Illinois.
of the Midwest. Yeah, 3 separate tornado warnings right now. Some a little bit easier to see than others, but I just wanted to pop that up as we get ready to hand things back over to Scotty.
Yeah, I was gonna say the chat just got a new message in chat that damage being associated with possibly one of the tornadoes in southeast Lee County. So it does
I
look
believe that would be our first cell and the one that was spotter confirmed.
this one
now all kinds of stuff going off in chat. So
starting to fire off.
It's going to be a very busy night, and for certainly anybody who is in that neck of the woods, or a reminder for anybody else to always be prepared, time to get those weather radios out.
yeah, there's another report from Compton, tornado near Shaw Road with tree damage. So it does look like those cells are actually producing some tornadoes, and something we'll definitely have to watch as the evening goes on. And stay tuned on our Facebook page and our Twitter feeds. We'll update that throughout the evening. We're about 8:41 here, so we're gonna, I guess, close this. And guys, unless we want to continue talking a little bit more, or we want to kind of close that, and
We could
we'll
do
get
storm
on with
coverage
our
all
business.
night.
We could do storm cover. Maybe we can do that sometime.
Yeah.
We've done that a few times, and that was fun. So, but we have business to take care of tonight. We're gonna do some things off air, so we appreciate you joining us tonight. I do want to remind everyone next week we have the Weather Channel's Mike Malkoff on with us. He's going to be talking about his research in Oklahoma. He's been out there doing some research on the tornadoes out there, and we're going to get his pick his brain a little bit next week and find out about that. And then after that, we have the Weather Pros on. They are a consultant business. They do a lot of stuff in the wintertime, so we're going to have those guys on. And after that, we're going to be joining the Weather Junkies on the 13th of July. It's going to be a joint show. Those guys based out of Connecticut and Colorado, I believe, are the 2 locations. So fun couple of weeks coming up, so we hope that you'll join us. I know next week's going to be a great show. Dave's done some great stuff out in Oklahoma, and I can't wait for him to share that with us. So we're going to go ahead and end this part. We hope if you have friends and family up in the Midwest, we hope that they're safe tonight. Make sure that you just remind them. I'm sure they've already been reminded, but it never hurts to check in one more time and make sure that they're aware of what's going on. And to our friends, David there in Charlottesville and Ricky up there in Bristol, looks like you guys at least maybe touched with this, so hopefully it's nothing major, as well as Peter up there in his area. Make sure there's no severe weather up there, and we'll see everyone next week. So thanks for watching our abbreviated show, and we'll catch you later. Have a good weekend.